Hello, my name is Henry Han, and today I'll be talking about a multi-state outbreak of human Salmonella Schwarzengrund infections linked to dry pet food. So let's start with some background. What exactly is this issue? Salmonella Schwarzengrund is a bacteria, specifically a foodborne pathogen, which contaminates food and causes illness when ingested. This outbreak across numerous states began in 2007, and it is believed to have originated at a pet care manufacturing company in Pennsylvania called Mars Pet Care US, where their product and environmental samples tested positive for the bacteria. But you might wonder, if the contamination was in pet food, how did it spread to people? Well, bacteria was indeed found in pets' feces, so the bacteria started to spread to humans and show more drastic symptoms in them. Study says inadequate hand washing after handling the food and allowing infants around feeding areas contributed to human infections. In fact, infants were especially vulnerable. 39% of those infected were 1-year-old or younger. In total, 25% were hospitalized and 32% had bloody diarrhea. Because the pet food was widely distributed, the outbreak spread across multiple states. Next is analysis of factors that affected decision making that happened in 2007. Authorities faced a tough balance, responding quickly to a public health emergency without causing unnecessary harm to the pet food industry. A wide recall could have prevented more illnesses but would have hurt businesses, while a limited recall risked leaving dangerous products on shelves. The priority, of course, had to be protecting high-risk groups, especially families with babies. Another issue was the complexity of the supply chain. Tracking contaminated products was a challenge back then, and pet food didn't have the same level of regulatory oversight as human food. This incident made it clear that pet food safety needed more attention. Also, in US culture, pets are seen as part of the family, so public health messaging had to respect that bond to be effective. In the end, Mars Pet Care US was shut down, and all dry pet food from that facility was recalled nationwide. And here's a quick SWOT analysis. The strength was how quickly the CDC, FDA, and state health departments worked together to identify the problem and issue a recall. The weakness was public unawareness. Most people didn't realize dry pet food could carry some kind of bacteria, or that hygiene was very important. The opportunity was to strengthen safety regulations and educate the public, and the threat was lasting reputational damage to Mars and the broader pet food industry. So I talked about the overall reasons why this outbreak happened, but what would be the one root precise cause? Well, I believe the biggest fault does belong to where it began. It was a failure in sanitation and quality control at one Mars Pet Care US plant in Pennsylvania, where bacteria was found in both the environment and unopened bags of dry pet food. This suggests a breakdown in food safety protocols, such as improper cleaning and disinfection of equipment. Uh, yeah, so this suggests a breakdown in food safety protocols, such as improper cleaning and disinfection of equipment or surfaces that came into contact with food, lack of environmental monitoring to detect and correct contamination before products were distributed, failure to implement kill-step interventions effectively in the production line, and insufficient routine testing of finished products before shipping. Now, how can we prevent something like this from happening again? Let's look at two alternative solutions. First, mandatory environmental testing at all pet food manufacturing facilities. This would involve routine sampling of surfaces and finished products for pathogens like Salmonella. It could detect contamination early, before the product ever leaves the plant. The downside is higher costs for manufacturers, but from a public health perspective, this is essential. Using the social ecological model, we see this isn't just an individual issue with hygiene. At the organizational level, manufacturer practices are critical, and at the policy level, weak regulation allows contamination to spread. So these two levels are very important. The second solution is a nationwide public education campaign. Many pet owners don't know how to safely handle pet food or understand the risk. Teaching them just simple practices like hand washing and keeping infants away from feeding areas could go a long way. Pros of this solution is strengthening individuals to reduce risk on their own, but the cons is that behavior change of citizens in all of the US is very difficult to measure. Health benefit model explains health behaviors based on people's perceptions of risk and benefits. This campaign would increase perceived susceptibility, like risk of infection from pet food, perceived severity, like potential hospitalization, and emphasize cues to action, like media messages, warning labels to drive preventive behavior. Now, I would like to propose two recommendations to help prevent something like this. First, I recommend introducing a voluntary but incentivized certification program for pet food manufacturers. Contamination often occurs post-production due to improper storage or packaging failures. Therefore, this program would certify companies that follow best practices in hygiene, environmental testing, and staff training. Products with the certification would be labeled as such, giving consumers confidence in their safety. It adds an extra layer of protection while also encouraging companies to go beyond minimum requirements to build public trust. Over time, this could become a standard that consumers look for in the food label, benefiting both consumers and manufacturers. Second, I recommend establishing a centralized traceability system for pet food products. This system would require manufacturers to log every stage of production, from raw materials to distribution, using digital tracking. It will allow rapid identification and removal of contaminated batches if a problem arises. Additionally, this type of tracing system can be integrated into anything. If we recall the COVID outbreak, this type of tracing system helped a lot to trace the spread. Now let's dive deeper into one of these for the action plan for mandatory environmental testing. The goal is clear. It is to catch contamination before food reaches consumers. So the FDA would develop clear national guidelines on how environmental testing should be carried out. This would include what surfaces and equipment need to be tested, how frequently tests should happen, and what bacteria to screen for, especially strains like Salmonella Schwarzengrund. Then both inspectors and plant workers would be trained to follow these new protocols. We will start with the pilot program at a few large facilities to work out any issues. After that, regular unannounced inspections can become a standard, with penalties for non-compliance and incentives for consistent safety practices. Here's the estimated timeline of this procedure. The full rollout could take more than a year, but it will add a strong layer of accountability. Overall, this plan creates a system of early detection and accountability, making it far less likely that contaminated pet food ever reaches the public. So, to conclude, this outbreak showed just how vulnerable we are when food safety regulations don't extend to pet products. After 2007, laws like Food Safety Modernization Act improved regulation of human food, but pet food safety is still lagging. A robust traceability system and stricter production protocols could have prevented many infections, especially among infants. It's time we hold pet food to the same safety standards as human food. Doing so protects families, pets, including me, because I'm a pet, and the trust we place in the food system. Thank you.